When I called my mom to tell her I had cancer, she said, "We're in the middle of your cousin's bridal shower. Can this wait?" I could hear champagne glasses clinking behind her as I sat in my parked car outside the oncology clinic, gripping a piece of paper that spelled out stage 2 breast cancer. 2 days later, my sister Ivy called. "Can you co-sign for my car loan? I can't get approved without you." Not a single visit. Not one offer to help with my 6-year-old son. But suddenly I was useful again, because they needed my name on something. Then came the day they all showed up smiling, pretending everything was fine. That's when my son, Luca, quietly handed my mom a folded doctor's note. "Mommy said to show you this if anyone asked for money," he said. The second they read it, their smiles disappeared. My name is Zara Miles. I'm 32, a full-time nurse, and the mother of a 6-year-old boy named Luca. I live in Cleveland in a 2-bedroom apartment that smells faintly of lavender and Lysol, depending on the day. It's not fancy, but it's ours, and in that space I've built a life around consistency, love, and routine. Each morning starts the same. I'm up by 5:30 packing a lunch that Luca probably won't finish and setting out a clean outfit while I iron my scrubs. By 6:30, I've done his hair, answered at least 3 questions about the solar system, and reminded him twice to brush his teeth. Then I drop him at school, head to the hospital, and begin 12 hours of managing chaos with a calm face. Being a nurse teaches you how to prioritize, how to triage not just patients, but emotions. You learn to tuck your pain away for later, to smile when you're tired, to comfort strangers while your own life waits quietly at the bottom of the list. That's how I lived. Efficient, dependable, emotionally organized. I didn't complain, not when the bills piled up, not when Luca's father disappeared from our lives before his 2nd birthday, not even when I had to choose between getting my car serviced or renewing his asthma prescription. I made it work. I always made it work. If you asked my family, they'd call me the strong one, the one with her life together. But the truth was, I wasn't strong because I wanted to be. I was strong because there was no other option. My mother, Caroline, is the type of woman who keeps family photos in perfect alignment on her mantle, but can't remember the last time she hugged me. She cares deeply about appearances. Her love is tidy and conditional. She was a stay-at-home mother who believed in discipline, image, and silence when things got uncomfortable. My father, Reed, lives in her shadow. He's kind, quiet, the type of man who offers to fix your sink instead of asking how your heart is doing. Growing up, he was there in the physical sense, but emotionally, he deferred everything to my mother. And then there's Ivy, my younger sister. Ivy is beautiful, impulsive, and magnetic. She's the kind of person who knows how to charm a room, then quietly ask for money in the hallway. She dropped out of community college, tried 3 different careers in 4 years, and still somehow landed in a new apartment every time she ran out of money. Guess who helped her get those leases? Me. I've bailed Ivy out of everything from unpaid parking tickets to utility shutoffs. My parents called it helping your sister, but I started to realize it was always a one-way transaction. When I needed support during nursing school with a newborn, no one offered to babysit. When I worked double shifts and fell asleep sitting up, they told me I needed to manage my time better. Still, I kept showing up, birthdays, holidays, emergencies. I was the dependable daughter, the reliable sister, the one who remembered everyone's appointments, bought last-minute gifts, and drove 3 hours in the snow to attend a baby shower that no one even thanked me for. Luca became my reason for everything. He gave me joy in a way no one else could. He didn't expect perfection. He just wanted me to be present. His love was simple and full, and he never had to earn mine. The day I found the lump in my left breast, I was in the shower getting ready for work. It felt small, firm, foreign. I tried to convince myself it was nothing, maybe a cyst, maybe stress, but I knew better. I scheduled an exam on my lunch break and told no one. Not because I was afraid of the diagnosis, I was afraid of the silence that might follow it. When the call came, confirming it was cancer, I didn't cry. I took a deep breath, looked over at Luca coloring at the kitchen table, and told myself I'd figure it out. I sat in my car for 15 minutes before dialing my mom. I wanted to hear her voice, to feel like someone had my back. But when she picked up, her tone was rushed. "We're in the middle of Melina's bridal shower," she said. "Can this wait?" I didn't tell her. I just said, "Sure," and hung up. I knew right then. I wasn't calling back. Not that night, maybe not ever. After I hung up on my mom, I sat in my car with the seatbelt still buckled and stared out at the street. I watched people walk past with grocery bags and coffee cups, going on with their normal lives, while mine had just shifted into something unrecognizable. It wasn't just the word cancer that haunted me. It was the realization that I had no one to say it to, no one to sit beside me, no one who saw the storm coming. The next day, I went to work. I kept my routine. I made breakfast for Luca. I packed his lunch. I hugged him twice before he walked into his classroom. At the hospital, I checked vitals, reassured patients, took notes, and smiled when the shift supervisor passed by. Not because I was okay, but because I didn't know how to do anything else. That night, after Luca fell asleep, I opened my laptop and started researching treatment plans. The screen glowed with words like invasive, chemotherapy, radiation, and survival rates. I didn't cry. I made a list. Doctors to call, days I could take off, who I might ask for help. But that last column stayed empty. I tried calling my dad. He answered, but I could hear the TV in the background and the familiar, quiet hesitation in his voice. "Hey, Dad, I'm dealing with something. Can we talk?" There was a pause. "Now's not the best time, sweetie. The Browns game just started. Can I call you back after?" I told him it was fine and hung up. Over the next few days, I had my first oncology consult, a CT scan, and blood work, alone. Every form I filled out asked for an emergency contact. I put down the name of a coworker, Renee, who I barely knew but had once brought me soup when I had the flu. That's how low the bar had gotten. I started chemo the following week. The nurse inserted the IV and smiled gently. "Do you have someone waiting for you in the lobby?" I shook my head. She gave me a longer look, then turned away to adjust the machine. My body changed faster than I expected. I was nauseous, dizzy, and exhausted in ways I couldn't explain. I lost my appetite. My hair started falling out in chunks, so I shaved it before Luca could see the worst of it. When he asked why, I told him it was part of the medicine, and he nodded with a serious little face like he understood more than I wanted him to. That weekend, my phone rang. Ivy. I hadn't heard from her since Easter. "Hey, so this is random, but I'm trying to get a car and my credit is trash. I need a co-signer just for the paperwork." I sat on the couch with an ice pack on my neck, trying not to throw up. "Did Mom tell you what's going on?" There was a pause. "No? What?" "I have cancer. I started chemo last week." Ivy exhaled like I had just told her I lost my keys. "Oh wow, that sucks, but you're not dying, right? You'll be okay?" "I don't know yet." "Okay, but can you still co-sign or is this a bad time?" The words were real. I heard them. I just couldn't believe they came out of her mouth. I didn't answer. I hung up. The next morning, I found Luca sitting at the table, holding a crayon and writing something on a piece of folded paper. When I asked what he was doing, he said, "I'm making something to help you." I didn't look at it then. I just kissed the top of his head and packed his backpack. That week, my family started calling more, not to ask how I was doing, but to plan Melina's wedding shower, to ask if I could bake something for the dessert table. And yes, Ivy brought up the car loan again. They started showing up at my door, unannounced, all smiles, like nothing had happened. I realized then that my sickness hadn't pulled them toward me. It had only made me more inconvenient. And the second they saw an opportunity, they tried to turn me back into the role I had always played, the one who fixes things. But something had changed. This time, I wasn't going to play along. After that call with Ivy, something inside me broke. But not in the way you'd expect. It wasn't sadness anymore. It wasn't disappointment. It was a kind of sharp clarity, like waking up from a long sleep and realizing the house is on fire. I had spent years being the family's emergency plan, the helper, the fixer, the one who filled in the silence, made excuses, carried burdens that were never mine. But cancer doesn't give you room to carry other people's messes. You either protect your energy or you lose it. That week, I sat down at the kitchen table and made a different kind of list. Not for groceries, not for doctor's appointments. This one was for boundaries, real ones. I wrote down every person in my life and what I would and would not tolerate going forward. I underlined Ivy's name. Then I drew a red line next to the words, "no co-signing." That wasn't just about the car. That was about everything. Luca sat across from me, eating grapes and watching me write. He asked, "Are you doing homework, Mommy?" I smiled. "Kind of. I'm learning how to take care of myself." Later that night, I went into his room to tuck him in. He looked up at me, his voice soft. "Is your sickness going to make you die?" I froze. I had practiced how I might answer that question in my head, but nothing prepares you for it in real life. I knelt beside his bed and said, "I'm going to do everything I can to get better. That's why I'm taking all the medicine, even though it makes me feel sick." He nodded and pulled his blanket up to his chin. "Okay, I just want you to stay." I kissed his forehead. "I'm not going anywhere, baby." That conversation changed everything. Not because I was afraid of dying. I had already faced that fear in the clinic. What scared me more was the idea of leaving my son in a world where people like my family were the loudest voices in the room. I had to show him what it looked like to draw a line and stand on the right side of it. I called my therapist the next day and asked to move up my next session. We talked about guilt, about how women, especially mothers, especially daughters, are taught that love looks like endurance, that we're supposed to keep giving, even when it empties us. She said, "You're allowed to change the rules when the old ones were written without your consent." That stuck with me. The next time Ivy called, I didn't pick up. When Mom texted to remind me about Melina's bridal shower, I didn't respond. I wasn't angry, I was exhausted, and I had nothing left to give to people who couldn't show up for me in the smallest ways. Instead, I turned inward. I started attending a cancer support group at the hospital on Thursdays. I let my neighbor, a retired teacher named Mrs. Watts, take Luca to school on my hard chemo days. I accepted meals from coworkers who offered, instead of brushing it off with, "I'm fine." Letting people help me felt like learning a new language. But it felt honest. Then came the day the family showed up at my door. It was Saturday. I was wearing an oversized hoodie and hadn't slept well. The doorbell rang and there they were, Mom, Dad, Ivy, smiling like they were delivering good news. "We thought we'd come by and check on you," Mom said, holding a store-bought fruit tray. Ivy walked in like she owned the place. "Also, I talked to the dealership again. They said the cosigner just needs to have stable income, so we should be good if you're still working." She said it like we were discussing weekend plans. Like I hadn't been sick. Like my hair wasn't gone. Like my son hadn't seen me throw up every morning for a month. I didn't say a word. Instead, I turned to Luca and said, "Sweetheart, can you bring me the paper Mommy gave you last week?" He ran to his backpack and came back with a folded envelope. He handed it to my mother. "She said to give this to you if anyone asked for money." The room went quiet as my mother opened the note. I watched their eyes scan the words. Their smiles vanished. For the first time, I wasn't afraid of the silence. My mother's fingers trembled slightly as she unfolded the paper Luca had handed her. Ivy leaned over to look. My dad stood behind them, quiet as usual, but even he stopped pretending this was a casual visit. The room, just moments ago filled with small talk and awkward smiles, had gone completely still. The note was short, printed neatly on a half sheet of paper from my oncologist's office. It read, "Zara Miles is currently undergoing active chemotherapy treatment. Due to physical and emotional fatigue, she will not be engaging in financial agreements, including co-signing, lending, or contributing to non-essential family expenses. Please respect her recovery and do not place additional stress on her." It was signed by my doctor and included her official stamp. I watched their faces. My mother's jaw tightened as she refolded the paper with careful, deliberate motions. She didn't say thank you. She didn't ask how I was feeling. She just turned to me and said, "You didn't need to involve Luca in this. It's a bit dramatic, don't you think?" That was the moment I stopped hoping she would ever change. I met her eyes and said, "I involved Luca because he's the only one in this family who's actually watched me fight for my life. He's earned the right to speak the truth when none of you will." My dad shifted his weight, looked down at the floor, and said nothing. Ivy scoffed. "It's not that serious. I just needed help getting a car. You act like we're asking for your kidney." I stepped forward and looked her straight in the face. "I'm fighting cancer alone. I've gone to every treatment without anyone from this family sitting beside me. I've thrown up in hospital bathrooms and still managed to get home in time to pick up my son. I've paid every bill while losing my hair, my strength, and parts of myself you'll never understand. And the first time any of you show up, it's not to help, it's to ask for something." She opened her mouth to respond, but I didn't let her. "I gave everything for this family. I co-signed Ivy's first lease. I paid the deposit when you broke your phone. I left work to pick up Uncle Neil from dialysis. I never asked for anything back, but when I needed you, you disappeared." My mother stepped in, her voice colder now. "We didn't disappear. We just assumed you'd tell us if it got that bad." "It did get that bad, and I did tell you. You just chose not to hear me." I turned to Luca, who was standing in the hallway listening. I called him over and placed my hand on his back. "This is who I'm protecting now. Not your feelings, not your image. Him." He looked up at me, confused but calm. He didn't know every detail, but he understood enough. He had felt the tension in my bones. He had watched me lose weight and sleep and energy, and he had never once asked for anything except the truth. I looked back at my family. You don't get to ask for pieces of me when you refuse to be here for the whole. I'm not the backup plan anymore. I'm not the fixer. I'm not the one you lean on when it's convenient. The silence sat heavy between us. No one moved. No one spoke. Finally, my mom set the fruit tray down on the counter like it mattered. "Well, I guess we'll leave then." She turned and walked out. My dad followed her. Ivy didn't say goodbye. She looked back once like she might say something, but then rolled her eyes and left. When the door closed behind them, I locked it. Not out of anger, but out of clarity. I had spent my entire adult life trying to be someone they would treat with love, but love shouldn't be earned like a paycheck. Love should show up when you're too weak to ask for it. I knelt down next to Luca and hugged him tight. "You did great, sweetheart. Thank you for giving them the note." He smiled. "Did it work?" I nodded. "Yes, it really did." That night, we ate grilled cheese and watched his favorite space documentary on the couch. I let him stay up past bedtime. And when he fell asleep with his head on my lap, I didn't feel sad. I felt free. The week after they walked out of my apartment, I didn't hear from anyone in my family. No follow-up calls, no texts, no surprise visits. And for the first time, their silence felt like peace. There was no pretending anymore. No need to brace myself for the next favor wrapped in false concern. I was no longer orbiting a family that only acknowledged me when I was useful. I was standing still, in my own space, surrounded by the people who truly saw me. Luca and I settled into a new rhythm. On chemo days, I rested while he sat beside me with his coloring books. He liked to narrate what he was drawing. A spaceship, a cheetah, sometimes a superhero who looked suspiciously like me. "This one fights with light," he told me once. "She can melt bad things just by touching them." There was healing in that, not just from the illness, but from the years of invisible wounds I had ignored. I started letting people in, not the ones who shared my last name, but the ones who had shown up without needing to be asked. My coworker, Renee, began bringing Luca little snacks when she knew I had long treatment days. Mrs. Watts, my neighbor, started sitting with me during infusions, knitting quietly, reminding me I didn't have to be strong all the time. I used to think family was defined by history, that sharing a bloodline meant you shared a bond. But cancer taught me something different. Family is not who you're related to. It's who stands with you when the ground falls out. It's who holds your hand when there's nothing left to give. It's who sees you at your lowest and doesn't flinch. My mother still sends photos of family events. Ivy posts smiling group shots on social media. I don't react, I don't engage, not because I'm bitter, but because I'm done asking for space in a story I was never truly part of. There are still hard days. My body doesn't bounce back like it used to. Some mornings I wake up and it takes everything in me to stand up, brush my teeth, and pretend I feel normal. But even in the struggle, there's a sense of strength I didn't have before. Not the kind that's built on endurance, but the kind that grows from clarity. I know what I will and will not allow. I know who I can count on. And I know that surviving means more than just staying alive. It means choosing yourself even when it's uncomfortable, even when it costs you relationships you once thought were permanent. Luca has become my mirror. He watches everything. How I speak, how I set boundaries, how I protect my peace. He once asked me why I don't see Grandma or Aunt Ivy anymore, and I told him the truth in a way he could hold. Sometimes people love you in a way that hurts, And when that happens, it's okay to step away so you can heal." He nodded, then asked if we could go to the park. That's what children do. They absorb the truth and keep moving. One afternoon, after a follow-up appointment where I learned my scans were clear, I took Luca out for ice cream. We sat on a bench under the late summer sun, watching people pass by. He leaned against me, sticky and smiling, and said, "I like you better now." I laughed. "What do you mean?" "You don't look tired anymore." I felt tears rise but didn't let them fall. He was right. I didn't feel tired. Not in the way I used to. I felt light. Felt awake. This wasn't just the end of a cancer battle. It was the beginning of something else, a life where I am no longer small in my own story, where my worth isn't measured by what I give to others, but how I protect what I've built for myself and my son. If you're watching this and you've ever felt like the reliable one, the one who's always strong, always available, I want you to hear this. You are allowed to draw a line. You are allowed to choose peace. You don't owe anyone access to your life just because they share your DNA. Healing is not just about getting better. Sometimes it's about walking away, and sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stop answering the door. If this story reached you, if it reminded you of something you've lived through or something you're still trying to heal from, I want you to know you're not alone. Strength doesn't mean silence, and walking away from what breaks you is not weakness, it's courage. If you found value in this story, please like the video so it reaches others who might need to hear it. Share it with someone you love, or someone who needs a reminder that it's okay to choose peace over obligation. I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you've experienced something similar or just want to share your own turning point, drop a comment below. I read everyone. And if stories like this speak to you, subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss what's coming next. This space is for all of us who've been through the quiet battles. You're welcome here. Thank you for watching. Take care of yourself. You matter.